You can have the best data, the best analysis, the most thoughtful solution. But if your idea does not land, then you can come across as lacking authority and fail to impress. And oftentimes it has nothing to do with your intelligence. It's about the way you deliver the message. So in this video, I'm going to talk to you about common expressions that actively and quietly undermine your authority and what you can do to be able to make the right impression on your higher-ups and exude executive presence. The first common expression is maybe we could. And it sounds like this. Maybe we can push the launch and delay it. Maybe we can revisit our goals for Q3. The word maybe converts what could be a recommendation into a brainstorming fragment. And when executives hear you say maybe we could, what they're really hearing is no commitment. You see, executives, they are decision makers in your organization and they need clear endpoints. And the phrase maybe we could is very ambiguous. And as a result of that, it really reduces your perceived competence. Because when you say maybe we could in lieu of a recommendation, it signals that you really have not considered second order effects or opportunity costs. It's also a signal of low commitment. Maybe sounds very much like a pre-exit clause that's said by somebody who's just not willing to carry the risk. Because if you think about it, maybe is neither a yes nor a no. But yes and no are both commitments, but if you said maybe, it's non-committal. And here's the thing about commitments. Commitments are valuable. They're also quite rare because if you're somebody who's non-committal, that means you're unwilling to carry the risk. Commitment is valuable because it's so expensive. Think about it. Committing with a yes or a no is committing to all the consequences that come after that decision. It's expensive. It's very costly, but you're somebody who can carry the risk. However, non-committal language is cheap. It's easy to say, it's easy to feel comfortable in because nothing's going to change either way. And because non-committal language is cheap, that's why it just does not earn respect or status. The second common expression that people say that undermines their presence is, I'm not the expert here, but. And it sounds like this. I'm not the finance expert, but. Or they say, I'm not the tech expert, but. Or, I'm not the human resources specialist, but. And that fails to impress because there's preemptive self-disqualification. In other words, you're priming your listeners to discount what follows. And you are basically framing yourself as the novice or the newbie in that area. And as a result of that, you're speaking like one. And guess what? Your listeners are going to mirror that frame. Another reason why that fails to impress is because you're dodging accountability. It reads as a soft disclaimer, just in case your idea was wrong. And here's the thing. The human brain associates competence with confident framing. And if you are saying, I'm not the expert here, but you don't have a confident framing. And a lack of confident framing causes individuals, by no fault of their own, by association, to make assumptions about your competence in that field or your competence as a leader. And the third reason why that fails to impress is because when you say you're not an expert here, but you're really framing from a place of insecurity. And when you're insecure and you say that and discount what follows after that, your listener who hears you say that expression, you're putting them in fact-checking mode. Now they gotta check over whether your idea is sound, whether it's well thought out or not. They have to check it. And when they're in fact-checking mode, guess what? They're not in buying-in mode. They're not in solution mode, and they're not prepared to be influenced. The third common expression that people say that reduces your presence are all those filler words, especially you know and like. So it sounds like this. I think we should, roll it out in 2 regions first. Or it sounds like, okay, so I hear you, but the facts tell a different story. Or I think we should expand our project scope in this region. These filler words exist because you have not really processed the thought. It really is more of a thinking problem than it is a speaking problem. And you see, when you make these sounds, the filler words are sounds, and these sounds are really a signal that you haven't really processed through the idea. And the reason why this happens is because of something I call a neuropsycho loop. Now, neuropsycho loop, there's 3 words. It's a compound word. There's 3 words in it. There's neurology, there's psychology, and there's loops. So let's talk about each one and why these filler words exist. The first component is your neurology. Inside of your brain, you have memory, you have recall, you have thought processes, insight development, idea development as well. That's your neurology. So that's the first part about why these filler words exist, because you haven't really thought it through. It's a thinking problem more than it is a speaking problem. And here's the thing, people don't like to watch you think. So if you're in a room full of executives and you haven't really thought it through and you're just thinking it through right now because someone asked you a question or because the discussion went a different way, people don't want to watch you think. They want to know that you've thought it through. So that's the first part of neuropsycho loops, is the neurology. The second part of neuropsycho loops is the psychology. And the psychology is how you perceive yourself. And as a result of that, how you perceive your situation, your circumstances, how you perceive other people, that creates your emotions. That also leads to how you show up. That's the psychology behind it. Your mindset, your beliefs, that's the psychology behind it. That shows up in the filler words as well. And the third aspect of it is the loops. Neuropsycho loops. The loops are the loops that you have between your anxieties, your judgments in the moment, and your perceptions that you see one by one and coming at you all at once. That's all the loop of those anxieties and the perceptions. So in combination, your neurology, your psychology, and all those loops create the fillers. These filler words, if you're saying them in meetings, it causes the listener to do some extra parsing whenever they're listening to you. And that extra work to sift through what you're really saying and to understand you, that extra parsing will work against you because it's lowering the perception they have on your competence, especially when they're under time pressure. And executives are constantly under time pressure. And if they have a lower perception of your competence, then they're going to also have a lower perception of your leadership, and that's going to cost you a lot. And the cost that you're paying is in what I call the disfluency tax. You're paying the disfluency tax because you sound less fluent when you use these fillers. And low fluency messages always sound less trustworthy and less competent. And the final thing about these filler words, whatever they may be, I use you know and like in this example, whatever the filler words might be, these filler words create a perception of adolescent level speaking. And when it comes to that level of speaking, it really is incongruent with the status of an executive leader. The fourth common expression that people say, and it lowers their presence, is, "That's not what I meant." And it sounds like this: "Hey, that's not what I meant," or, "Well, that's not what I meant." And it's a defensive repair. You're trying to fix a communication that you didn't communicate well, and so now you're trying to fix it defensively. And as a result of that, you're really framing your communication as me versus you. And that triggers threat or some sort of a micro conflict. And this is very triggering in the listener when you say, "Well, that's not what I meant," because it triggers their amygdala response, and immediately their emotions come in and the thought process is, what? Did I just get corrected? And in high stakes meeting, when there is a high requirement on diplomacy, on respect as well, it doesn't go very well if your listeners are feeling that they got corrected. Most of the time when I hear leaders use this expression is because, well, hey, you didn't convey it clearly enough, and as a result of that, other people misconstrued your meaning, and now you have to correct it defensively. But here's what I teach in my mentorship. Communication is always going to be with another person. And the onus is on the communicator, the one who delivered that message, to ensure that that message is clear and concise. In other words, that it's easy to understand and impossible to misunderstand. And the fifth common expression is kind of. And it sounds something like this: "Finance is kind of concerned with cash flow," or "The project went kind of smoothly." Kind of implies that you don't even know the magnitude of it, or you're not committed to stating it. And here's the thing, when you are in high stakes conversations, executives need to know the thresholds. Thresholds mean like, is it a go or a no-go? Do we continue? Do we stop? Is it or is it not? But when you say kind of, the word kind of erases all thresholds. Senior leadership expects sufficient, orderly, and precise information. And that expression kind of just violates all of that criteria. Kind of is one of those vague descriptors that lets everyone know, well, why don't we just keep our options open? And as a result of that, no one is owning the outcomes. But here's the thing, executive brains, they really do need crisp and clear messages. When you give vague inputs like that, kind of is a vague input, then they really can't update their internal models or the mental models that they operate with. And as a result of that, it's just easier energy-wise to ignore the message. And the sixth common expression is, I think we should. And it sounds like this. I think we should broaden the scope of the project. Or, I think we should hire 2 more SDRs. And here's why that fails to impress. It's because I think centers more around you instead of the organizational logic. And it's what's called epistemic language because it reads more like an opinion, I think is this your opinion, instead of something that's more reasoned and logical. And as a result of that, it sounds just like you are pondering. It's your own epistemic pondering or your own epistemic musing. And as a result of that, what's really absent is reasoned steps, like, for example, evidence to inference to planned action and then risk evaluation. Like those steps, examples of those steps are missing because it's just your own personal epistemic musings. As a result of epistemic language, it invites debate instead of a dialectic. A debate is 2 people coming together and they are fighting around why I'm right and why you're wrong, and someone is going to be right and wrong and win or lose. That's a debate. Versus a dialectic, when 2 people are coming together and they're having a dialogue, 2-directional dialogue, and at the end of that dialogue, it increases the collective intelligence. Epistemic language based on I think and centered around you invites debate instead of dialectic. Executives don't respond to that type of epistemic language because there's too much at stake to just go along with someone's personal ponderings. Instead, executives respond to deontic language. And deontic language is the type of language that's grounded in fiscal responsibility, clear objectives, and also a clear set of rules and logic. And the 7th common expression that people say is, I'll try to. It sounds like this. I'll try to get the deck to you by Thursday. Or I'll try to hit the deadline by next quarter. I'll try to really casts a non-binding intent. It causes other people to doubt that you have control over your own inputs or whether or not you have control over your own prioritization. Well, think about it. If someone said to you, I'll try to do that, I mean, the first thought that comes up is, what do you mean you're going to try? Are you going to do it or are you going to not? Are you going to prioritize it or are you going to not prioritize it? So this is where the doubt gets casted in that phrase. The word try externalizes agency. It says that, well, a lot of things can go wrong and, circumstances can change. We can lose our budget. The economy might go sideways or the management team might restructure. And as a result of that, I don't know if I can achieve that which I promised, but I'll try, right? External agency. Whereas when it comes to executive leadership, they sponsor individuals who take ownership of the outcomes and who internalize agency. Because here's the thing, if you utilize this expression, I'll try to fill in the blank with something really important, then your senior leadership is going to perceive you as more on the lines of trying to optimize the optics of it instead of taking ownership of outcomes, organizational outcomes. All 7 of these common expressions shift the cognitive burden onto your listener because they're trying so hard to infer what you really mean. They're trying so hard to decide whether or not you're committed. They're trying so hard to reassure themselves that you're really there as a team player. And as a result of that, this is really important to understand your words have meaning, and it may not be conveying the meaning you want to convey in terms of your capability, your competence, and your trustworthiness. So if you are listening to this, I suggest that you pair this every time and understand this every time when you go into a meeting, because every meeting that you're going to be a part of is like a silent audition. Are you showing up well? Are you empowered? Are your words expressing leadership in the way that you desire to express it? Take note of these 7 phrases and then pair this with the other 7 phrases that I talked about that expose you as being not executive ready. I spoke about those phrases in another video. That video is coming right up next.